He didn't want to talk about it. He was sick yesterday, and so I wasn't able to get further answers out of him to fully resolve the issue.
Okay, so we should
But
be.
he did not want to talk about it today. So I don't think we're going to talk about it today.
No. But the question was if we could close it. But I mean, if he's, we might then defer it for one more before we close it, or
Yeah,
because.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to forego my usual habit of starting at 9 o'clock sharp to allow people to wrestle with me to go.
Yeah. Because I see so far we only have Alan, Andrew, and Mike. That seems to have been able to join so far.
I'll give them 2 minutes in my magnanimous frame of mind today.
You're taking 2 minutes away from the editors? I object.
Yes. Your objection is noted. Okay, there's no terror and confusion on the Slack, which is good.
My bicycle helm lines shows up. What you get for going home just before the meeting.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Media Over QUIC virtual interim. This is our first one in maybe ever that's been on MeetEcho. Thank you for figuring out how to get here. The session is being recorded. I don't even have to press a button, so as long as we use MeetEcho, I will not forget. This is the IETF Notewell. This is a series of links that to all the procedures the IETF has regarding intellectual property implications of you attending here, as well as a code of conduct for IETF participants. If you're not familiar with these documents, please type some of these keywords into your favorite search engine and read to your heart's content. The meeting tips slide is different. You are all in the MeetEcho client or you would not be here. We have a show of hands tool, which if you're not familiar with it, it's pretty intuitive once it comes up. You can enter the queue by using the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen. We ask that you have your audio and video off unless you are talking or chairing. If you are
I would slightly modify that to say unless you're involved in the discussion, because there is a slight delay from you unpause, etc. So if you have a silent enough environment around you, it's as long as you're involved in the discussion, please leave it on.
Yeah, I mean, you cut me off, Magnus. It's right there. If we're in a back and forth conversation, like by all means, leave it on, because a muting does have a lag of roughly 1 second. So don't, if you're going to jump in, like turn your mic on a little bit early to give it some time. And then lastly, I would say, frankly, that MeetEcho's echo cancellation is not quite up to speed with some other applications. And so I would encourage you, if you can, to grab a headset or some earbuds to limit some of those issues. We need a scribe for today. And while we're waiting for someone to step up, I'll just say that You'll note that I don't have to browbeat you to sign the blue sheets because that is automated in MeetEcho. The fact that you are here means you have signed the blue sheets. I will also note there's a Zulip chat. If you click on the 2 quote bubbles at the top of your screen, you should be able to open the chat for this meeting, which is currently empty. And feel free to speak up either by unmuting yourself or putting a note in the chat that you're willing to be our scribe. This meeting is being recorded, so the purpose of a scribe is to produce a good digest of what was discussed and what we decided, not to have a verbatim list of everything that was said. That's what the video is for. Thank you, Mike. Mike English has stepped up in this chat. This is today's agenda, which is lifted, other than this administrivia portion, which we're in now, this is lifted exactly from Alan's email yesterday. Would anyone like to bash the agenda? Alan?
Yeah, I realized that the one thing I forgot to put on here, which we discussed last time, was the resolution to 335 around like unique track token. And I think we agreed that we wanted to get this resolved one way or the other fairly soon. And people had some homework to go think about, extensions, etc. So I'm just wondering if we can touch on here what the plan is.
I would like to give this view. I attempted to communicate with Victor yesterday. He was ill. No one has to. Victor has the ball on this, and we'll follow up in the next few days to see where we are. And if we need to discuss it more, we'll discuss it next time. But he was under the impression that his conclusion was that we did not need to talk about that today.
Okay, I would like the chairs to like have some reasonable deadline to resolve this issue one way or the other. Hopefully, I don't know, like the latest, like the draft deadline for the upcoming IETF or something.
Oh, I hope to do well before then.
Okay, excellent.
Oh, we should actually. I'm going to bash my own agenda. We should probably talk briefly about the session request. We've historically requested 3 hours. For Madrid. Does anyone have any comments about that one way or the other? Alan, are you in the queue or are you just, is that a relic? Okay. Victor says in the chat that issue 335 will require some editorial text, but he doesn't expect a wire change. Can we take a moment to see who owns that ball? Victor, is your hope that Alan would write something along the lines of one of the proposals he made in the issue, or are you going to write something? Either of us can write that, he says.
Can I just say that I'm not sure exactly what you want to write? So can I just have you write it, Victor? Or can you send me a short Alan GPT prompt and then I can write what you want?
Okay, he says sure. Okay, lovely. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and
okay. You can now see my.
I'm gonna try. Oh, there's the problem. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna request screen share. I made like ever so brief slides rather than staring at GitHub. I thought this was a good thing, so let me see if I can succeed here. I don't know how screen sharing works.
Hey guys, meeting at 9 o'clock or 9:30. Sorry, I'm in India, so my time.
It's 9 o'clock now. It's 9:10.
Is meeting at 9 or 9:30?
The meeting has started.
Okay.
It goes for the next 50 minutes.
Thank you.
I don't want to select a slide. Why is this? I don't want to share a slide deck. I want to share my screen. What am I doing wrong?
There's a screen share button next to the share slides button.
Okay, it says, can you see my screen? I clicked on the
We cannot.
request. Okay, let me try again. Okay, it says request screen share. I'm clearly failing. Did you guys grant it to me?
I don't have a button to grant it to you.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Magnus, do you have any idea what's happening here? You're muted. There, well, that's now something's
Yes, I
happening.
want to share my screen. I want to share Chrome.
Magnus, you're muted if you're talking.
For everyone's knowledge, how to prove this is to, when people show up in the queue, you can click their name and then you get to an approval button. So,
Okay, you guys can see?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. So I just put everything here, even though, just so we can just go through them one by one. So 995 is published. I think this has 4 approvals. It's been approved by all the authors and editors and some other folks. I think there's one outstanding issue there. Suhas raised an issue regarding the normative language that is in the document for multi-publisher scenarios at a relay. And by that, I mean, if there's 2 people who have announced a namespace and a subscribe shows up, the document currently says then you should send that subscribe to all the publishers who have announced. So publish is now similar if there are multiple people who have published a track, for example, and then anyway, it just it uses that same should that was there for the subscribe flows. I have opened 1037 which is an issue to track this because Suhas has requested that should become a must. My recommendation is that we just merge publish as is, matching the existing behavior that's there for subscribe, and have a separate discussion about should versus must, unless everyone is super happy with one or the other, and then we can resolve that at the same time. But I don't want to block publish anymore on this since it's existing text. Does anybody want to comment? To us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I'm okay with whatever we decide. Either we merge now or we have open discussion. But at least from the issue discussion, what I basically saw your response and Cullen's response. It might more look like it was a clarification that was supposed to land a while, but it did not. And we are adding a new rule to publish about this around the same area. I thought if that can go along with that, it's something that's been a while. We did not address it. That was the only reason I raised it at this point in time.
Okay. So are you, just to clarify, it's okay if we merge publish as is and come back and address just this should must separately?
Like my preference would be if we can get it as part of this, because you're adding a new rule to add publish in the relay. It would be nice to go along with it, but if the group decides we do a separate PR, I think I'll be okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have an opinion they would like to express?
As an individual, I mean, I haven't thought about this deeply, but certainly I mean, forgetting about multi-publish for a moment, if I've got like 2 things upstream to me delivering the same thing, I might not want to just take double the bandwidth just because 2 people are publishing things. I mean, I don't know if this is like an application dependent thing, but I'm a little uncomfortable just forcing people to do that. I mean, I guess I could just cancel one of the publishes immediately, or whatever the reject message is for that after accepting it first.
I think the language for publish, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to refresh, but it's in the PR. But I think it's for example, you can have a publish that's in forward 0. So like I connect to a relay and say, I have track number 1, but I'm not sending you any data unless you ask. Then another publisher shows up, same relay, says, I also have track number 1 and I'm not sending you data. So the should is there. It's like a subscriber shows up, the relay has to at least pick one of the publishers and say like, okay, I would like you to start forwarding me objects. And the should must is like, it should actually tell all of them to forward. Or we could say must, it must tell all of them to forward it. As an individual, I also sort of tend to agree with Martin that like leaving some wiggle room for applications where it's like, I'm okay having one in standby and I will flip it from not forwarding to forwarding, like when I feel like I need to, like seems okay.
I think as long as the subscriber can dictate forward equals 0 for like all other publishers, that's fine. I don't remember what the mechanics are in the PR. If that's the state, then I have no objection.
Suhas?
Yeah, I think it's that even the make before break kind of use cases, which I think discussed for a while. There will be a case where you'll have 2 active connections from the same publisher, and then you make the second connection, you break the other one. Even for that basic case, if one relay does one way versus the another relay does something different, then you'll have 2 different experiences for the endpoints. At the same time, if the application knows and if it can be done at the applications layer, saying that I'm connected, hence I can close my connection, close my previous connection because I reconnected properly on the another connection, and it closes. Yes, that's where the application knows it did the make before break and it saves the bandwidth. But we were asked. This section is talking about what should the relay do when you have something like that, and the should is something I feel like causes the implementation inconsistencies for the same use case by 2 different relays if one does one way versus the other.
Yeah, I hear you. I still maintain that like I would like to merge publish now and then spend more time talking about this so that like people can go and start building publish, because it unblocks a lot of things. And like this particular edge case of either like maybe not edge case, but this scenario of like multi-publisher, I think very few people actually have any implementation here, and it's like people are still catching up. So I don't know that we need to block this PR on resolving that should versus must there. So I would strongly like to move forward. And I'm not saying we're going to keep it should forever. I'm just saying I don't want to block publish anymore.
Yeah, I would agree, because we have 137 open, right? And that's only to talk about this one issue.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, I'm a big fan of like, if we can actually separate things out and they're not directly dependent, like separate them out into a separate conversation where we can only talk about that one issue. I mean, it seems like subscribe and publish should have the same normative language in the end, no matter what. So I think this is, as long as we're in agreement, like, 137 isn't too late. It's not like it's a valid open issue that exists, right? Like, and I think we're all on the same page that like is a valid open issue that we will like talk about and resolve as a working group. Okay, cool.
Suhas, can you live with that?
Yes, I can. I would like to. We'll discuss on the issue, but yeah, I do not want to block publish because it's been open for a while. I agree with all the work being done there. So yeah, let's go ahead with that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, next, 1008, clarify full track name construction. So we talked about this briefly in Stockholm. This is saying that you can't, within a namespace, you can't have a namespace tuple and a track with the same name. So if you have A/B, B can either be prefix like another piece of the namespace tuple, or it can be a track name. It cannot be both. You can't have both of those things in your name. So Ian has questioned whether this restriction is important, whether we need it, and Will asked if this is another reason why we should reconsider merging namespace and name, which we did also talk about in Stockholm. And at least my thought, the current signal was like, we're okay keeping them separate for now. I don't know if anybody wants to spend any time talking about this one.
I can address my comment, which is that I'm If we need it, then I just want like text in there about like why it's helpful, necessary, besides just like it's confusing.
Okay, I think I added the text that says like.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with the text you have there now. It's the namespace name merge. I don't have a strong opinion on, although I think as always, it's good to understand like why we would make that change at this point because things largely work. And so I can't remember what the past motivations for merging them were exactly. So.
Okay, let me just go back and say, so I added some motivational text, which is like, this is ambiguous and confusing if we let you have both. So that's why we're not letting you have both. Like your directory can't contain both a file and a directory with the same name. You got to pick one. So that's there. In terms of our motivation for why we did names, why some people want me, well, maybe Will can address why we want to merge namespace name since Will's in queue. Go ahead.
Is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay, good. So actually, it was still unclear to me when I read the spec and even after this PR, we talk about a name, we have a namespace tuple, say it's a/, right? To give a text example, and then my name is B. So, but when we talk about matching for say a cache hit, we talk about matching the combination of both of those, right? In which case they concatenate it to the same thing, A/B, whether the first part is A/ and B, or it's A and then a /B, we get the same end result. And
that's not entirely true, right? Because each tuple has to match exactly. So it's not like you concatenate it to one big string.
But we don't say that. We don't say you go tuple matching and then you match the name as well.
Oh, I think if we don't, I think that's what people intended.
Well, we don't say it because we're looking at this cat for MOQ spec now, and we were just having a prefix for namespace name. We didn't care where it sat. But what we need to do for the token is explicitly have an N32 field for namespace and then another field for the name, and every one of those has to match precisely.
Oh, you triggered a big Q, Will. Okay, Suhas.
Yeah, on not specifically on namespace or name merge, but I think one of the things we came out of in Stockholm is to be very clear that whenever you're going to match, it should be per tuple bytes match, not a concatenation one, because a foo bar match is exactly the same as foo and bar if they're not two different things, and hence when you do prefix or any kind of match at that point, it'll not work. I think if we haven't clarified that in our spec, we need to be very clear, and that way cat for MOQ spec can rely on that when we do it. On the particular point about should we merge the namespace or name, again, I like going back to the previous discussion. That is something that can come as its own discussion. I would be interested in discussing further that, but this issue does not actually solve that problem, though.
Okay, makes sense. Ian?
I just want to say, I thought we were clear that like the namespace and name were just like a sequence of bytes, chunks O bytes, and you match on said chunks O bytes. They're not strings, they're not anything else. But if we're not clear, then we should be clear. But I thought we were. I don't know. I haven't looked at.
Let's take an action item to. I think there's agreement that's what we should be doing, and if the spec doesn't say that, let's take an action.
I swear there's text somewhere in there that says that, but like I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay, editors will verify that it says that and open a separate issue if it does not. Victor?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Will here. It is a very weird thing to reason, and I really don't understand why we're doing this.
Okay. In terms of why the namespace and name have been split?
I know why they were originally split, but that was 2 years ago, and for reasons that are completely related to current draft.
Okay. But that I'm somewhat inclined to merge this PR just to keep our PR set low and come again. We can come.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely an improvement over what's currently in the draft. But
okay, then let's not spend too much time here. We'll take we can take a separate swing at namespace name again. We did bring it up in Stockholm, and the vibe was like, no, we don't need to. But if people either are unhappy with that or feel like we need to, like, this is very important that we resolve this because it really is related to object model, and like we got to stop talking about it soon. Okay, so unless anyone has any objections to this PR, we plan to move forward with it. Please, I think it needs a couple more approvals, so if you can approve, please approve.
In the chat, there was a +1 to Victor for that, but yes, we can resolve it separately, he says.
Mike, can you clarify your +1? Victor said a few different things. I can't hear you. Maybe
Didn't know your mic.
Maybe, Mike, if it's easier, you can just clarify in the chat. Oh, okay, excellent. Let's roll on. Okay, authorization token, allowing the authorization token parameter in client setup and other auth fixes. So this is the approvals, and it's ready to merge. It fixes 7 issues in the draft, so I'd really like to get it in. I think it, in a lot of ways, is a like cleanup pass over the draft 11 token stuff that we did. But the new major functionality is being able to send this token in client setup. So one thing that is a little bit that we, as in writing this PR and through the review, we discovered is that it's a little awkward if the client gets a single token that gives it all of its permissions, both permission to establish a connection and to subscribe or publish or whatever it's going to do. It has a single token to do that. And so it would only like to transmit that once. But in client setup, the client does not know the server's maximum size of its cache, and that default is 0. And at least I think that's probably good because it allows simple implementations to not implement this cache. However, it means that the client is like literally would never be able to register, which is we sort of don't think is good. So the most recent version of the PR said that it's okay. Client setup can go ahead and try to register an alias, even though it does not know that max size. And if the server sees that in client setup, it gets a registration that is too big, it does not fail that session. It would normally be a session error, but instead it just treats it like a use value. And when the client receives the server setup message, it will see the max size and adjust its cache appropriately to know that like registration was clearly not successful because the cache wasn't big enough to hold the token. So that's one thing that happened. The other thing that happened is that any other message that has a register in it, if that message does not cause a session error, then the token cache has to at least have the alias and track what was the size of the token. And that includes if the token was just complete gibberish, it's okay if the receiver wants to throw the token away, but it needs to remember that alias 7 was gibberish and it needs to know how big it was so that the accounting is appropriate. So those are 2 things that maybe people want to comment on. I think most of the other stuff in the PR is straightforward. Does anybody want to comment? Martin?
Yeah, I'd just like to register that it's a little annoying. I haven't implemented this yet, but I can just see like my parameter validation code needs like this weird special case when it's client setup, which is not great. That said, I don't have a strong opinion on use cases or if like this compression is really all that important. But if you think it's important, then I can't see a way around doing this. That's good, unless you're willing to accept it with 0 RTT, but that's a whole other can of worms. So I can live with this, even though it's annoying.
I haven't implemented this. I mean, I only wrote the text like a day ago, so I haven't written the code for this either. I suspect you're right. It's probably annoying. Will?
Yeah, I'm just questioning why we need a special case for only client setup. Couldn't we make it generally that if you attempt to register a token with an alias and you've exceeded the size or there's no size at all, which is the default, that it doesn't fail the session. It simply returns you knowledge that, hey, you can't use this alias. I'll use your token this time, but you're going to have to send me the repeat token every single time. Why can't we extend it to all the other times that we pass the token?
So one reason is that like if let's say I want to subscribe to 2 tracks, and so I send subscribe that as a register, and the second subscribe then has says like I'm using the same token that came in the subscribe before it. If that first subscribe registration fails, the second one has no authentication credential.
That's fine. Then you fail it. You say no, like alias error, no alias registered.
I mean, it also like by that time, the reason why client setup and server setup is somewhat different is that like you can't send anything before you get the server setup. And once you get the server setup, you know this, you can compute the size entirely on your own. And again, like a lot of this is modeled after the way HPAC and QPAC
Okay.
already work for compression.
Okay.
So we're drawing on some existing experience here.
I see it.
Martin?
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that argument. So clearly, as someone sending this token, you should not capital should, capital not exceed the limit. But like I think you're just talking about doing a soft error instead of a hard error. If you're having the situation with 2 subscribes, assuming they're not being set before server setup, is it possible to send it before server setup?
No.
No.
I mean,
No.
in client setup you can, but every other message comes after server setup.
Right. Okay. Great. So given that, if you did it, like if you're not keeping track of the limit the server gave you, then you're gonna have trouble, because in the exact scenario you suggested, the current state is that it's just going to fail the whole session. So like, don't do that. Like force people say you really should do the limit, but the error is a soft error, and it's just you're gonna create problems down the road for yourself with like authentication. But in client setup, you can probably get away with it.
Okay. Are you suggesting that we should make this a soft error in all cases, as Will was suggesting, or are you? I'm not sure. Can you?
Yeah, well, I'm responding to. So your response to Will's thing was like, "Oh, well, that's not good because of this other case where I subscribed twice." And I think I don't have a strong opinion about this. I don't want to pretend that I do. Like,
okay.
But like from an implementation perspective, it seems easier just to make it a soft error.
Okay, when it comes to these, particularly since this particular compression scheme is entirely for auth credentials, it's very important that people not screw it up. Because if you screw it up, it's like you may be giving the wrong credential to the wrong thing. And so it's good to make errors like I used the wrong alias or something, or like an alias hasn't been heard, make that a session error. It's just like everything blows up tends to be safer than, we'll just try to like do our best to like assume positive intent here. So it's trying to be very crisp around that.
And it's a total size, right? It's not like number of, so we can't even like protect it by alias ID or anything, where there's like a max alias ID. It's all size. That's gross. Okay, I have to think about it. I'm going to stop talking because I need to go and think about this more.
Sounds good. Colin? Okay, I briefly heard some background noise from you, Colin, but then nothing else. Ian, while Colin's trying to...
Sure. Sorry. As an editor, I'm kind of inclined to like move forward on this in some way, shape, or form relatively soon anyway, but I think it might be worth just filing a new separate issue for this particular problem. I'm not convinced there's not some combination of hard error and soft error that wouldn't be like potentially viable here that might make this a little cleaner, but
okay, I should go back and look at the 7 open issues that this is closing, because one of them it's closing may be exactly around like get crisp around what's a soft and what's a hard error. And like this PR is an attempt to do that by it's if you overflow the cache, that's a hard error. If you use an alias that's not in the cache, that's a hard error. And everything else is like, at least from auth perspective, is not an error. Like the cache is like maintained. I can't hear you, Ian, if you're talking, but you look unmuted. Oh no, this Meet Echo experiment may be a failure.
Yeah,
Martin. I have bad news.
There are good things about it, but the audio is turning into a disaster. Okay. Please use the chat if you're having issues. We'll muddle through it. Let's see. What was I going to say? First of all, yes, let's just land it and argue about this later. Colin says in the chat that his point didn't matter. He's just having issues with his iPhone. Okay. Shoot. Oh, how many bytes are we talking about for these tokens?
I think that usable ones are hundreds of bytes, but Will's probably the expert to say.
Yeah, they can be hundreds of bytes in size, but the alias is just 1 byte, right? It's a number.
No, I get that. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
so, I mean, like, all this like complexity we're building around client setup is to save the one-time sending 100 bytes like once instead of twice.
Well, yeah, it might go up if you have a very large complex token. It might be a megabyte, right? And now the idea was if you're just doing audio-based playback and you're having to send this token every single time you're subscribing and unsubscribing during a web
Oh,
conference.
no. Look, I've accepted that we're doing mock pack. Like, that's not what I'm trying to argue here. But like this whole client setup mess is just because like if we said no, you can't send tokens in client setup because you don't know what the limit is, then you would have to send the token twice instead of send the full token twice instead of once. Which
Yes,
like
that
I mean
is-
I don't know. And it's control plane bandwidth. Like maybe we just eat the inefficiency there. Again, I'm not going to lie down the road on this, but I just suggest to maybe way out of this to save ourselves a lot of text and code.
I would maybe say that like I also like maybe the code is horrendous or maybe it's not so bad. I don't really know. I guess I'm sort of inclined to try it like this, and then if people hate the code, like people go and implement it and they hate it, we can rip it back out and be like, no, let's just send the token twice.
It's not horrendous. It's like in my like parameter thing, it'll see there'll be a Boolean argument that says was from client setup, and then I'll do different. Like it's totally doable. It's just annoying, and like it seems like this is solving a mildly annoying problem with mildly annoying code and mildly annoying text. I can live with it, but you guys are going to suffer through the writing, so it's up to you.
Okay.
Ian? It seems like there's two states of the world, one in which you really need it in client setup because it's somehow a critical part of the whole auth picture for client setup, in which case, I mean, it probably needs to be valid. And if it needs to be valid, then like presumably it's a valid token and presumably the server size limit is large enough to allow that token to be registered. Like, I mean, I guess my point is like, if you need the token, you need the token. If you don't need the token, why are you putting it in client setup? Why don't you just put it in like the next message? So like, just make it a hard error and make the handshake fail if it doesn't work. I don't care. Add a new error code for the handshake failure, which is like token too big or something. I don't know.
Well, we already have that, right? Like,
Okay,
so there's the few states of the world. We can increase the default to something non-zero. We can keep it a hard error and make people, if they need the token in setup and they need it in a subsequent message, they're going to have to send it twice, or we do this. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of okay with any of the outcomes, honestly. Well, actually, I tend to think that we should keep the default 0 to reduce barrier to entry.
Yeah, that's
having people be mad at me for having written QPAC for years because they like have to implement for HTTP. Want to give people an out.
But I guess you see what I'm saying about like if you need it in client setup, you need it in client setup. So the server better have a large enough limit to.
But you need it in client setup, but the server can have a 0 size cache. That's why You can just send it
Oh.
all the time.
You can just say don't cache it. Okay.
You can just like, yes, there's a separate instruction for like, I'm using this token versus I'm using this token and I want you to put it in your cache because I'm going to use it again.
Okay.
Okay. I am inclined to move on. I'm going to make this request. If somebody really feels like the current PR shouldn't, it's already approved and ready to merge. If somebody thinks that it's a really bad idea, please put a request changes on it in the next like 12 hours. Otherwise we'll merge as is. We'll see what disaster we wrought as we implement it and revisit it again if we need to. Okay. Track status and mirroring subscribe. So we talked about this previous interim has been updated based on the feedback. So the message formats are still identical. However, the publisher always sets the track alias to 0 to make it particularly clear that the track alias is like not consuming track aliases, and the text says that it's not an error if there's already a 0 being used for a subscription, etc. It's just like track alias is just like not useful. I removed the responder parameter that nobody liked. This does not have enough reviews or approvals to merge right now. So thoughts, Suhas?
Yeah, and it's more of a clarification question. So, like,
oh, I'm sorry. There was one other note that you had on that also, which was about whether you can. Okay, so let me explain. The question is whether a relay has, at its discretion, can issue a subscribe upstream to fulfill a downstream track status. So I think Martin or someone else asked for like, can I do this? And I was like, oh yeah, it seems like you could. So the current text says the relay can do either. It may send a track status up. Okay, let me back up. If you have an active subscription, track status doesn't need to go upstream. You just answer based on what your current relay state is. If you don't have an active subscription, the PR says you can do two things. You can forward the track status to the publisher and take the answer that you get. Or if you think that you want to subscribe to that in advance, or for whatever, you can, instead of forwarding a track status, you can send a subscription. You can send a subscribe, establish an active upstream subscription, and then use that information to respond to the track status. So Sue has to go ahead. So that's the context. So go ahead and raise your questions here.
Right. All right. I think the point here is that, like, if you really would be interested in subscription, then I would go with subscribe message, not the track status message on the front. And on the other hand, if I want to know where the current track is, and basically the track, I'm using track status only when I know that there's an head, and I want to find out will I be able to join wherever I want to join in the head. Other than that, I don't see why would I use track status. And also another, like, if there are multi-hop relays across the globe, and if my relay that I'm joining does not have the active subscription, making it go all the way to start sending the data might not be a good idea either. So I'm just trying to see, allowing that feels like a good feature, but it's eventually you might not want the data to come there. And you only want the data when you know there's an active track, and I want to figure out the head of the track. So it kind of, you do one or the other, not both, in all the use cases that we talked about.
So I'll observe that the client, like if I have 1,000 clients that all want the track status for a track, if I don't have an active subscription to the relay has to send 1,000 track statuses to origin. So there's a DOS vector here. And the only way to combat that, now that we removed this sort of like old, like, I don't have an active subscription, so I'm just going to answer you anyway. The only way to answer track status and not DOS the origin is to establish a subscription here. And I think it can do it with forward 0, right? It doesn't have to pull objects, but it can at least get, is that true? If it doesn't pull objects, weird things happen. Anyway, my thought was here to give relays the wiggle room here to, if they want to, or like, it also may be that 1,000 clients asking for the status of the same track is a good signal to the relay that it ought to subscribe to it. There may be people who are going to subscribe to it soon. So it just seemed like it made sense to allow it. It doesn't say that the relay has to do it, one or the other. It just gives both options.
Okay. I'll think about it a bit more. Thank you.
Okay. Mo?
Alan, just real quick, can you clarify why track status could not be merged at the relay? Why would it have to forward 1,000 upstream if it got 1,000 subscribers coming in at once? It's not allowed to aggregate the track statuses?
Well, if they all came in at exactly the same time, I think it would be fine. But let's say they come in a disjoint way, like it takes 10 milliseconds to respond to track status, and there's a new one that comes every 10 milliseconds.
Right, but are you assuming that the relay has to forget its response to track status, and it can't remember its response to track status? Are we prohibited from remembering information as a relay unless we have an active subscription?
I mean, I get it. Like, I feel like if the relay is allowed to cache this response, then there needs to be a little bit of signal about like how long it's allowed to cache it for, or like something like we don't talk about caching this kind of metadata. We talk about caching objects, which have max cache duration, etc.
Yeah, I see your conundrum. Yeah, you don't know how long your response was fresh, and whether you're lying about the track status, whether you're lying about the response because you don't have the fresh view of the head. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Okay.
Suhas, did you get back in queue?
No, I don't know. I removed my thing.
Okay.
It put me back on. Let me remove it again.
Okay, no problem. Will?
Yeah, I actually got in queue, but Mo mentioned it first. I think caching the response makes a lot of sense. There should be some time set by the publisher for a track where it says, I allow you to cache the status. If I know I'm sending objects every 33 milliseconds, but my groups are 2 seconds apart, I'll say you can cache latest group for 100 milliseconds and my app will still work. So the very first time you asked me for track status, I return the TTL in the response, track status okay, and it says you can cache this answer for 100 milliseconds. So one would go forward, and then the rest of it you would cache and serve to all your 1,000 people.
Okay, I have two questions. Number one, do you think that the relay should never be able to subscribe? Or do you think that if a relay, if it wants to subscribe in response to track status, it can?
I think we can let it subscribe. In my head, the machinery you set up for a subscription, you're going to save memory in your cache is a lot heavier. This is designed to be a lightweight operation. So if you want to go do the heavy thing and get the same answer, go for it. Or if you want to do if we can invent a lightweight thing that works and it's not complex, then I also see utility there.
Okay, so the text that's in the PR says you can do either, and it sounds like you're in support of doing either. But in the case of if you send track status, you think we need an additional, because I don't think max cache duration is the right parameter, because that applies to objects, not metadata.
Right. I think the response to track status, which at some point has to come authoritatively from the original publisher, it could include a cache parameter, a cache hint.
Okay. Yes. All right. That's one way. Okay. Ian?
I think this is largely okay. I certainly think it's fine to do a subscribe upstream if you want to. It seems like it should work. I don't see any major problems. I'm fine with caching track status. I think this PR looked fine last time I checked, but I can't remember if there was. I think I was still complaining about
why
the expires field or something that didn't make any darn sense. But I guess if we make everything parameter, it won't matter. I still think track status is weird, right? Like if you do subscribe namespaces, you get all of the namespace announcements and you get all of the subscriptions. But you don't get track status because it's not really a subscription. It's kind of like the only thing that's not like a subscription-y looking thing in the system. And so it's weird. Okay. So I'm just going to say it's weird.
Okay.
I don't really love it as an individual, but it's okay. It's just
weirdness is noted. I think many people in the working group sort of aren't exactly sure when they're going to use it, but most people seem to think it's probably something that we will find use cases for and we want to build it anyway. I don't know.
Again, I'm not. I made a case for killing it previously, and it wasn't quite compelling enough. So I'm certainly not going to do so now. But when I think about wildcard subscribe more, it's like track status doesn't fit into that world. So it's I don't know. It's a little weird.
Okay.
That's all.
Mo?
But yeah, you should probably move forward for this and tidy it up. So this is certainly an improvement.
Okay. Mo?
I have no problem with allowing it to be converted to subscribe. I think if we wanted to allow the caching of the track status, rather than what Will was suggesting with having some machinery to indicate how long the cache lives, I think it'd be more useful just to say on a track status response declaratively, how old is it? Just have an age, parameter or something that says this information is from 20 milliseconds ago. This is from 5 seconds ago. So the live head is could be not live anymore.
Okay.
Is
So
that
do you want absolute time, I assume, or like you want a relative time?
elapsed. This has aged from when I knew the head.
You know,
It
like
is
an age.
head has aged this long since I sent you this response.
Okay.
Use at your own peril.
I don't. Suhas?
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of align with Ian at this point in time on this. Let's implement it, and with experience, we'll add more complexity to this. In my implementation also, I have not yet figured out the right place to use it. Might be there's a use. I see there's a value in it, but I'm not sure where to use it. I think if you want to add more complexity, I would like to have some more implementation experience on that one.
Okay, which would, to me, that sounds like we should probably merge something like the current PR and give it a while and see if people like it, or if people want to. If we feel like we need to solve this caching problem by adding an age header or a max cache duration metadata header or something, but we don't necessarily need to do that right now. Okay. Homework is, this one doesn't have enough approvals to land anyway, so people go read it and stamp it if you like it, and if it reaches critical mass, we'll merge it. Suhas, okay, I had an issue on expires, but if there's only 9 minutes left, do you want to cover your presentation, or is there not enough time and you want to save it for a subsequent meeting?
I think it would be more than 9 minutes because I would like the discussion and feedback from the team, from the group. So that would be my.
Okay.
Let's schedule that for the next then.
Okay.
Give it
that
ample
sounds good.
time for discussion.
Okay, I will roll backwards then and talk about expires, although Cullen's not here and he was the one who had some thoughts on it. So this was just, so I took the expires field exists in subscribe okay only today right now. And someone filed an issue saying that publish will need this. So I thought, oh, this is great. We'll make expires a parameter because it actually, it's not just publish that can use it, because really any message that creates state, the person who accepted it and created state on behalf of the message might want to advise the person who requested the state get created to tell them, like, I don't plan to keep this around more than this long, and so you should make according plans. And so I thought I'll make this a parameter. However, like, Cullen reviewed this and then said that also outlined a bunch of behaviors for subscribe that are not anywhere in the current text, and to my knowledge had not been proposed before. And I filed a separate issue to track those things, and I didn't bring them all here, but there were things like expires should mean that after that time has elapsed, it's like a silent close, like the subscription will end without a subscribe done, for example. And I think a few other things. So I guess I wanted to give people a chance to comment generally, like, does this seem like a good use of parameters? And is that like kind of the right direction? And then the second one is, do people want to completely revisit the expires parameter? Like right now, the text is very small. Thoughts? Ian?
I think making a param makes sense. I think we should probably move forward with that PR soonish either way, because it doesn't really change like whether it's a parameter or not. At some point, Cullen, I think, had a concern that if it was a parameter, people might not implement it. I will remind everyone of ACK ECN and QUIC. Every single QUIC implementation can parse that frame. The fraction that actually do anything useful with ECN marks is still vanishingly small. So just because you make someone parse it does not mean they actually have to do anything useful with it. So I think those two things are kind of like orthogonal. I definitely do not want a silent close on this one. Like we're not like the reason we did silent close and quick is specifically to avoid like radio wake ups on like mobile devices and IoT devices where like, you know, going idle for a long time and then receiving one packet actually might be costly, like in a material way. Like we have no such use case here. Like things magically disappearing is scary, and it's better just to like have an explicit close.
Okay. I see Manish had a question in the chat, which is like, how do you choose a correct expire time? And the answer is like, I don't know. If you know, you know. The server knows like, I mean, one might be like, you subscribed and I parsed your auth token, and your auth token expires in 30 seconds. So I might tell you like, this subscription is going to get canceled in 30 seconds if you don't do something else. But as it's described right now, that parameter is entirely advisory. It's not a promise for the server to do anything, and it's not telling you any action is going to happen. It's truly advisory. Wendell?
Yeah, the expiration time is usually with the token, with the authorization access. And I mean, we was not the only one saying that it's a very bad idea to mix token information, token claims information with parameters that appears in the delivery messages. This is mixing the security aspect and the delivery of it, and you reveal information to pirates. So I'm very much opposed to this.
So so are you saying, Gwendol, that you think we should remove expires entirely from the draft or something else?
Well, yeah, probably. This is, I mean, or we can at least let it like absolutely not mandatory, because there is no, I mean, most of the time the expiration is with the token. So it's something which is directly control plane to edge delivery relay communication. So the server knows when it will stop to deliver the content, and it's up to the subscriber to know what to do if there is no more information. And in the cat token group, we had long conversation about Qatar, which is one of the parameters that says, well, X time before the end of the expiration, you might extend the expiration time, or you might send a new token, or you might do some actions. And this is typically like a, you know, token communication with the video player. So we are not mixing the layer in this case.
Okay. There is no requirement about how you populate this expires field. So the
sure.
auth example doesn't mean like you must read the expire time from the token and put it in this expires field. So that's not mandatory anywhere.
Well, yeah, but if you mix information which are in the token, and if you send other kind of information in these parameters, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. We're running out of time too. So Ian?
I had a clarification. I just want to make sure that Gwendol knew that this is in making it a subscribe parameter, not an object like header parameter, extension header. So it's in the control plane. But either way, but I also had a question for the group, which is expires always token? Because like I think I would feel better about expires if like it really was straight up like your token is going to expire, your auth is going to expire like in this amount of time, because then it would be like much clearer what the client needs to do, which is I need to refresh auth. As it is now, I issue a subscribe update before the expires to hopefully make my subscription not go away. What am I like? What is the important information I'm supposed to put in there? It's unclear to me like what that is. I assume it's new auth, but like,
yeah, but
the update anyway. Yeah.
The clients, when they reach the expiration time of their token, they might not know, but the control plane is supposed to renew the token, or the and Will can confirm that the CDN edge relay is the one who create a new token with a new expiration time for later. I mean, there are multiple models for renewing tokens and to extend the expiration time.
Okay. Unfortunately, I think, and the chairs will probably rest this away. We're almost out of time, so we might not get. Unless Will is super. Can you solve this problem in 25 seconds?
No, I was prepping for a long conversation. I don't exactly agree with Gwendol on this one, and I think we need to handle expiry without tokens as well, untrusted expiry. And if we want the trusted expiry, it has to come in the opposite direction. It has to be a token that is sent from the origin up through the CDN, and the CDN, it's intended for the CDN. The X token coming from the client is not, right? It's one the CDN enforces, but it doesn't communicate expiry information to the CDN. So I think we need to talk about it more.
Okay. All right. It sounds like this is maybe not going to resolve. I don't know if we want to park this or leave the needs discussion in this PR, keep it going.
Yeah, I encourage people to go to GitHub and talk about it. It seems like there's a lot of ideas in this space that we should.
Okay, Martin, before you wrap us up too, I have one more thing, which is that we, on Slack, we sort of are designating next Wednesday, the 11th, as an virtual interop day, kind of rolling throughout the day. Be there for your own time zone. I guess us West Coast people will try to get up as early as possible to hang out with some Europe people. But I'll send a note to the list also. But if you're interested in trying some draft 11 interop, we're aiming for next week.
Magnus, you got anything?
Yes, feedback on use of Miteco. I think those who actually experienced the audio problem, I will post an email to. It would be good maybe to report those to Miteco. I will see what the contact information is, but so we'll see where we are. We'll have to consider what we do in 2 weeks.
Yeah, please do send your comments about how this experience was relative to the Google Meet experience. Suhas, do you have something very quick?
So very quick. So should we respond, send an email to the mailing list on the experience?
I will send something directly so that you have something to respond to.
Cool. There we go.
But if you have actual technical problems with sound, etc., it would be good to send those to me. Actually report them to IETFs. I think it's the Secretariat will forward them to Miteco.
Okay. All right, we are 2 minutes over time. As of today, like the meeting 2 weeks from now is going to be on Miteco. Magnus and I will talk about it and maybe do a change of course if we think that's warranted, partially based on your feedback. Thank you for participating, Mike English. Thank you for taking notes, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.